historic crew. What should we know about them, and just what, like, today and like the next 24 hours or so is going to look like for them?
Yeah. So listen, the first 24 hours for that crew, Al's bringing back my prop. Thank you very much. The first 24, of course, now listen, the crew, let's remind you, the crew is way up here, right? They're up in the Orion space capsule. The rest of this, the entire SLS, that drops away once they're in space. So the first 24 hours, they're going to be in the Orion capsule, I should say, orbiting the Earth, checking out their systems, and going to 17,000 miles per hour when they lift off out of here. After 24 hours in space, then they will light the fire again, and now they will accelerate to more than 24,000 miles per hour, again, in Orion, headed for the moon. That's a 4-day trip to the moon. A reminder, they're not landing on the moon, they're looping around the moon, a huge Circle 8, but that will take them farther from Earth than any humans ever. And then, of course, it's the return, and they're not going to have to light any fire to come back. They're using the moon's gravitational pull, if you will, to kind of slingshot them back to Earth. So 10 days, hopefully, if all goes perfectly, landing in the Pacific 10 days after they lift off. And we're all hoping that they go today.
Wow. Let's bring in Dr. Emily Rice. She's here on set with us. She's an astrophysicist at the City University of New York. Dr. Rice, thank you so much for being here. I want to pick up on a thread that Tom laid out there for us, which is the fact that this is 53 years since Apollo. But put in perspective for us, from just a research perspective, from what you're watching all the time as an astrophysicist, how big of a deal it is to get back to the moon, to go further than humans have gone. Why is that so significant?
This is huge. I cannot understate how amazing this is. I do want to emphasize that, of course, there's a difference. You know, there's a lot of robotic spacecraft that we have. We've sent things to other planets. We've sent things to the edge of the solar system. But there's still something amazing when we see humans in space. And, you know, there's a long history also of the human space program enabling astrophysics. Like our space telescopes were put into space by astronauts. And Mike Massimino, he's beloved among the astronomers because he's been on the Hubble servicing missions. And so Hubble has lasted for so long because it was serviced by astronauts. And so there's a lot of us in the community that would go to space if we had the chance. I might not be one of them, but I will fully support everybody that does. And that we're still learning things from the Apollo mission. And the things that we can learn from the moon when we put people back there are also going to be amazing.
And in case you're wondering, yes, Dr. Rice is wearing a moon shirt right now. Those are craters along with the spaceship. So very good. You're following the assignment.
We won't ask you to show us your NASA socks on air.
But she is wearing NASA socks, in case you're wondering. I can't help but think of Pink Floyd and the dark side of the moon. This crew's going to see things no one's seen before. How big of a deal is that? What's the kind of testing and experiments they can do, and what will that mean for all of us?
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. So Pink Floyd lied to you. There is no dark side of the moon. It has the far side of the moon.
There you go.
That does get illuminated when we don't see the full moon. But they will see this with their own eyes for the first time in 53 years. Humans haven't seen this with their own eyes. We can take pictures, we can look at the pictures, but having a human photograph this and be able to change things around, make decisions like that in nearly real time, it's only like a very brief time delay in communication between the Earth and the moon. And so having people be able to do that is going to be huge.
Wow.
And so even though this test, it's really a test flight, mostly for the crew capsule and getting everything working in there to make sure it's safe for humans to spend this much time in space, but also practicing taking pictures of the moon, learning that geography and things like that, or lunar topology, maybe I should say, because it's not Earth anymore, that we just haven't done in generations is amazing. I have my space shuttle necklace. So the space shuttle did not go to the moon, but that's to remind us that we shifted gears for a little while. We built the International Space Station. There have been humans in low Earth orbit continuously for 25 years, more than 25 years. It's amazing. But humans back to the moon, it hasn't been, in more than 50 years. And so being able to do both at the same time is just phenomenal.
Oh, it's so awesome. Everyone's going to stay with us. We're going to go back to our Tom Costello, who, as you know, is there on the ground. I think he's got a model for us of Orion. This is the actual capsule that the astronauts will be in. If I'm seeing that right, Tom, show us.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is Orion, and now this is, of course, after the solar arrays come out, right? So once they're in space, they deploy the solar arrays. And so this is about 30, in terms of the crew capsule, the living environment, about 33% bigger, more room than Apollo. A reminder, Apollo had 3 astronauts. There will be 4 astronauts inside Orion. And at the risk of repeating myself, you know, Canadian Jeremy Hansen is about 6'2", and he has joked that Canada's getting more than their fair share of space because he's so tall. But regardless, they've got to kind of elbow each other because that's it, right? They're all in the space, about the size of 2 minivans, if you will, and they're going to be in there for 10 days. And so the first 24 hours is critical. And, you know, I said that, in fact, in that first 24 hours, they got to test out the new toilet. That's not a joke. In fact, it's one of the first things that the astronauts talked about when they said what they're going to do in that first 24-hour period. You don't want to be going on a 10-day mission around the moon if your toilet's not working. So, literally, that will be a priority, as well as testing out all of their new comms systems, their deep space communication systems that they're going to be using. And then making sure everything's working properly. Keep in mind, nobody has ever flown in this before, ever. This is the first time humans have been in it, and they're going on a very long journey, 600,000 miles round trip in total. So they got to make sure everything's working properly before they then begin that long trip, when they light the torch and they go at 24,000 miles per hour headed straight for the moon.
All right, let's hope that the toilet works, because I don't know if any of the 4 of them have plumbing experience. So it could be a long 10-day journey there. Apple TV, NASA TV has started its broadcast right now, building up to the countdown. Let's take a moment to listen in.
Going to finish that last little bit that is needed to get us to 100% level in those tanks. Now, because these are gases, these are liquid gases, as the temperatures start warming up, those gases will, that liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen will start venting off into a gas. Because of this, following topping, teams will then transition into what is called replenish mode. Replenish means just that. They're just going to constantly be replenishing these tanks so that we make sure we're at 100% level and we are at that flight ready level for when we enter terminal count. Now, I'll be reporting out as each of these operations and milestones are underway. Our Artemis launch team, they're currently communicating with each other through these separate communications channels that I'll be tuning into. And I'll make sure to relay as that information gets underway and they report those milestones and call-outs out. Now, while we wait for slow fill to get underway, let's do a little bit of a recap of the entire countdown. Again, we said we started on Monday at 4:44 p.m.
We'll keep coming back to this as we're getting more information from NASA. We do want to bring in now former NASA astronaut Dr. Stephen Hawley into this conversation. We are so happy to have you with us this morning, Doctor. So excited to talk with somebody who has been in this position where you're getting ready to head to space. Tell us what the crew might be feeling right now. Like, are you nervous in the hours before launch the way that most of us regular non-astronaut people would be?
Well, good morning. It's good to be with you. I would say, yeah, you're nervous. You want to be a little nervous. But also, you know, you're thinking, at least in my case, I was thinking, you know, finally, after years and years of training, here's the day that you've been preparing for, and you're really looking forward to the mission and putting your training to use.
What is some of the training the crew has been going through to get ready for something like this?
Our launch director, technical assistant,
Well, of course, they'll practice all phases of the mission. Usually in the training, of course, you're confronted with a number of problems you have to deal with, so they've probably seen every problem imaginable. But one of the things that would give me confidence is that although this is only the second flight of the SLS, most of the components are flight proven. As Tom was reporting earlier, the solid rocket boosters were basically the shuttle solid rocket boosters. We flew 4 segments and they're flying 5 segments. The main engines are shuttle main engines. 3 of them have actually flown in space before. And the tank that we flew is similar in many ways to the core stage. So there's a lot of flight history in the hardware, which I think would give the the crew confidence that it will perform as they expect.
Dr. Hawley, we just heard our Tom Costello describing Orion, and he showed us that little model. But I think when he said, I loved that he said, it's like the size of 2 minivans, because it really gives us sort of perspective. This is like an extremely long road trip where you can never get out of the car. 10 days, 4 people there together, the size of 2 minivans.
Let's hope they brought snacks.
Yeah, exactly. And let's hope, as he mentioned, the toilet works. But I think it sounds hard for some people to imagine just a process like that. But there's this greater mission going on. Tell us what it's like to be in close quarters with some people and just how you get through that.
Yeah, well, I was on the second Hubble servicing mission, for example, and we flew Discovery, and we were a crew of 7. So I had 6 crewmates in the volume of the crew module on the Discovery. And one thing that works in your favor in space is you have weightlessness, and so it's volume more than square feet that counts. But you get used to it, and of course, you've been training with these people in confined spaces, for years. So I didn't actually find that adjustment too difficult.
That is just incredible and amazing, and speaks to you guys are just different and cooler than the rest of us. Stay with us. I'm going to now bring in Dr. Paul Sutter. He's a cosmologist at Johns Hopkins University and the author of How to Die in Space, and a friend of our show with us all the time. Great to have you with us on such an exciting morning. Walk us through right now, on the left side of our screen, our viewers are seeing and hearing this a little bit in the background of NASA talking through this process right now as they're preparing for launch. We know they're sort of fueling up, but tell us what it is that NASA is doing right now, also what they're looking for, because we know that this was scrubbed once before when it was essentially like a helium blockage, I think was the terminology there, but I'm not exactly sure what that means. So tell us, what could go wrong that they're looking for right now to make sure all systems are a go?
Yeah, we have to remember that these rockets are amongst the most complex machines ever devised in the history of humanity. So the list of things that could go wrong is extremely long. And so this is a moment, a time of intense activity, of intense focus. All of this has been dress rehearsed, all of this has been choreographed, all of this has been rehearsed and practiced and workshopped and written through for years, as Tom mentioned. The Artemis program we're decades now into the Artemis program. And so now is the time for activation to go from the theoretical ideas that we've written down and procedures and put them into practice. We are looking for everything. The fuels that we're using are extremely volatile. And if there's a leak, it's not like having a tiny little leak in your car and you can just drive it to the shop. That's not exactly an option with the Space Launch System and the Artemis program here. So everything has to be right up until the moment of launch and then through the moment of launch. So as they are fueling this, they are continually running checks on the main systems, the backup systems, the tertiary backup systems. They're preparing the astronauts for all of the emergency procedures. They are preparing, they're walking through all their engineering teams for the emergency procedures, the playbook, the plans for every single possibility to get us to that moment of launch.
Doctor, quickly, just tell us a little bit about this fueling process, since that's what we're watching right now.
So the fueling process is incredibly delicate. We are talking about millions of pounds of fuel. This takes a little bit longer than the fuel up at your local gas station. And these are highly volatile, highly reactive compounds. This is rocket fuel, literally, that they need to be isolated. They need to be chilled until the moment of combustion in the rocket nozzle itself. So this is a very delicate procedure, but also a very high volume procedure. So it's something that has to happen very, very quickly and very seamlessly, which is a difficult balance to achieve.
All right, Dr. Paul Sutter, thank you so much. You're staying with us. All of our super smart space friends are staying with us, who we've been talking to all morning. And you should stay with us at home, because throughout the morning we are bringing you this special coverage continuing right now. Right now on Morning News Now, countdown to mission. You are looking live right now at the Kennedy Space Center, where in just a matter of hours, the astronauts aboard NASA's Artemis II will head thousands of miles into space for a mission around the moon. The four-person crew will embark on the first manned flight to the moon in more than half a century. Among the astronauts, the first woman, also the first person of color to take part in a NASA lunar mission. It's expected to be a 10-day trip orbiting the moon. One of the priorities for the mission is to test out systems to eventually support astronauts on future missions to the moon, landing on the moon. Tonight's launch is scheduled for 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time. This is the second of 3 prep missions that will lead up to that first crew to land on the moon that is scheduled for 2028. We begin this hour in this countdown mode with just hours until the launch of NASA's Artemis II mission, sending astronauts around the moon. We're going to show you this live look at the launch pad before that launch window opens at 6:24 p.m. tonight. That right there, that's a live picture. If all systems are a go, we will see the 4 astronauts head to the pad this afternoon. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello, he's been with us all morning. He's coming to us from Kennedy Space Center and covered NASA for more than 20 years. Tom, good morning. A big day where you are.
Hey guys, right now they are beginning to fuel this giant rocket. 730,000 gallons of liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen right here in this orange core fuel tank. And then on the sides, you've got these 2 SRBs, solid rocket boosters, borrowed from the shuttle days. These are like sticks of dynamite. You light this thing, you're going somewhere regardless. So this is the priority this morning. And you know, this is kind of feeling a little bit like the 1970s vibe here at the KSC. You might say NASA's going back to the future.
The last time astronauts visited the moon, Apollo 17, 1972. Now Artemis, the twin Greek god of Apollo, is poised to send 4 astronauts on a lunar flyby.
People are excited and ready to go on this first chapter on our way back to the moon since the 1970s. So we're very excited.
A staggering 8.8 million pounds of thrust will lift the Orion capsule and its crew to 17,000 miles per hour. NASA Chief Jared Isaacman.
No humans have ever flown on that rocket before. Our 4 astronauts will go out, put the spacecraft through its paces. But what comes next? Artemis III in 2027. We're going to get in a cadence of launching moon rockets in months, not years anymore.
For the crew, Wiseman, Glover, Koch, and Hansen, the first 24 hours will be spent in Earth orbit, testing critical systems, including a new onboard toilet, before accelerating to 24,000 miles per hour, aiming for the moon.
And this is the simulator that the Orion crew has been practicing in. It is very, very real. This, the left-hand seat, is where Commander Reid Wiseman will sit. On the right-hand seat, that's where Victor Glover, the pilot, will sit. Now, the ship itself is going to fly in an automated mode and largely controlled, remote controlled from the ground. But they need to be able to take over manually in the event of an emergency. So the right-hand control here will control the pitch and also the roll of the spaceship.
A 10-day, 600,000-mile round-trip mission with a huge Circle 8 around the moon and beyond.
We're going to test this capsule. We're going to lay the groundwork for Artemis 3 and 4, and we're going to try and get back safely and land in the Pacific Ocean. That's what really matters to us, and that's what we should be focused on.
So Artemis 3 that you heard there, that will be a mission orbiting the Earth. That's coming next year to test out all of the systems, try docking procedures. And then Artemis 4 and 5 landing on the moon, they hope, as soon as 2028. However, they still don't have a lunar lander spaceship. So right now we've got the titans of space competing for that job. We've got SpaceX, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos with Blue Origin. Those companies right now competing to see who can come up with the best lunar lander first. Back to you.
All right, Tom, thank you so much. Well, let's bring in our A-plus team of experts for more on these hours leading up to this historic mission to the moon. We're going to start with our friend, former NASA astronaut Mike Massimino. He is there at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Mike, I'm so excited to see you. I'm so excited for you that you are there. I'm loving your outfit right now. We just love talking to you about every single space story all the time, always, of course. Walk us through what you're seeing right now this morning. What's exciting you about what you're seeing?
Well, it's a beautiful morning, and I'm excited. Thank you for noticing the jacket. I only wear it down here at the Kennedy
Mike,
Space
by the
Center.
way, you probably can't see me, but I'm in like a spacey shirt that I think you would appreciate if you were here on set with us.
Oh, excellent. It gets us all in the mood. So what we're seeing right now is a gigantic rocket. The biggest rocket ever to take people anywhere is on the launch pad to my left over here. So very excited to see that, but I'm really excited for my friends who get to go. When the crew, when they were first announced, they were on the Today Show the day after they were announced, and I got to see them in New York City. And as soon as I saw them, I gave them big hugs and said, I'm so excited. I was more excited for them getting assigned to this mission than when I got assigned to my own missions. And Reid Wiseman, the commander, said, I understand, Mike, because he's going to be even more excited for the crew that gets to land. So this is something that everyone at NASA, all the astronauts, maybe the whole world's been waiting for, leaving the planet, this time not just to go for a visit and unfortunately wait for another 50 years to go back, but to go there and start laying the groundwork so that we can live off the planet, settle up there, have a research station, and learn everything we can learn from being on the moon. And this is the step number one. But very exciting day, huge rocket. And remember, when you're watching this later, there are 4 people on top of this gigantic rocket going on quite an adventure.
Oh my gosh, what a great point. By the way, we've got Dr. Emily Rice here on set, Mike, who name-checked you a little bit ago and said, we all love Mike Massimino, and I think part of it is at least because of exactly what you just said right there, how you're more excited for them than you were for yourself. Mike, I think it's just so hard for most of us to imagine what it must feel like just moments before they're going on the ride that you just described. You have done this before. You spent nearly 600 hours in space. You spent more than 30 hours space walking, which is a whole other conversation and crazy thing to even imagine. But I mean, what are they feeling right now? I'm sure it's excitement. I know they've worked so hard for this for their whole life. It's sort of like the culmination of a dream and a goal achieved. But are you nervous right now? What does this feel like?
So for me, I was so excited with my first time going into space. It's like my commander used to describe it like waking up on Christmas morning. That kind of feeling, something you've anticipated for a long time as a little kid, and now the big day is here. And I was feeling pretty good about it. You go through, you practice before, you have rehearsals, so you know what you're gonna feel. But the thing that got me, Savannah, was getting out to the launch pad. It was my first launch was a very early morning launch, and we were out there in the middle of the night, and looking up at that rocket ready to go. It becomes alive. Once they fuel it, you start hearing sounds and you see water vapor coming off of it, and it looks like it's alive. It looks like a beast. And the thought went through my mind at that moment, looking up at that rocket ship in the night, I thought to myself, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. But luckily, I didn't dwell on that, and I just kind of trusted the system and my training and moved forward. Once I got inside, I was fine. Thinking about stuff can be a lot worse than doing it. But once I got inside the spaceship, we had things to do. We had a little bit of fun. The pilot's responsibility is to tell jokes. I played rock, paper, scissors with the guy next to me, stuff like that. And then the countdown just keeps going, and you hit all these little check marks, boom, 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 boom. And before you know it, it gets like within a minute, and you're like, we actually may go somewhere someday, because you don't really know you're going anywhere until the solid rocket's light. That's when you know you're on your way. And so until then, they still have still a chance you might get, go another day. But you get closer and closer and closer, and then you start thinking, this is really happening, and it's an amazing experience. The thought that went through my mind right after liftoff, my first time, was, I cannot believe that people built this.
Wow.
That people built this such a powerful vehicle that we're able to do things like this. So it's going to be an amazing ride for my friends. It's the most powerful rocket ever that we put people on. And I'm just so happy for them and happy for the whole NASA team and happy for the whole world.
I feel like for us regular people, the feeling you described is like when you are like, yeah, I'm totally doing that giant roller coaster that goes upside down, and then you get to the front of the line and you're like, what am I thinking? However, we have the option to be like, you know what, never mind. And that's not the case for you astronauts. Mike, stay with us. We're going to keep talking to you. I want to bring in Dr. Emily Rice, astrophysicist, who I just mentioned a moment ago. And I'm really excited because we're like going to kind of demo some stuff for you. So tell us what this is.
I have scale model marbles. So, Tom, we see your cardboard models, and I have a literal blue marble for the Earth, and then a moon marble, to scale in size.
To scale?
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much bigger Earth is.
Yeah, Earth. But actually, the moon is relatively big.
But I didn't realize that.
Yeah, we see pictures of them all the time, but when we see pictures of them, usually we do some nice, and they put them really close together. But in space, the distance between these two is something more like this, kind of about either end of a pillow. At this scale. Yeah, and so when you think about it like this, it's actually pretty far. Yeah.
No kidding. Okay, and so I know from some of the simulations that we've created here at NBC, they're going to launch, and that's in what's called lower Earth orbit. Is that right?
Yeah, they're going to start out in low Earth orbit for just a little bit. That's where the International Space Station is. That's where things like Hubble are. So it's only really a few hundred miles off the surface of the Earth. So at a scale like this, it's just off the surface, barely at all.
Which is crazy because you're like, that's not the International Space Station so far away.
We think about it in space, but it's it's really like just outside the atmosphere, not really too far away.
Okay, so then they're going to boost into outer Earth orbit.
Higher Earth orbit. Yeah, so a higher Earth orbit, take them further away. They're going to test out the capsule. They're going to test out their spacesuits. They're going to test out their drinkable water, the toilets, and things like that, because this is what they're going to need in order to eventually leave Earth orbit.
And how long is all that testing going on
This is just the first couple days. So the first day is a very busy day. So I read their schedule. The first day, they don't get to sleep a full 8 hours. They work, they sleep 4 hours. They're going to get woken up again. They're going to sleep another 4 hours.
Who wakes them up? What do you mean they get woken up?
They're going to get woken up they're going to have headsets and things like that to be able to wake up to mission control. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so then they're going to get boosted into a higher orbit when everything checks out. They're going to actually, one of the propulsion stages is going to disconnect, and they're going to practice docking with that. So they're going to be controlling the capsule in this Earth orbit and practice docking with their ignition stage, because that's what they're going to have to do in space eventually. Because the Orion capsule that they're on, that they're going to travel to the moon in, is not going to land on the moon.
Right.
Like at the later stages of the Artemis mission, they're going to dock with other things in Earth or in lunar orbit, which is going to be very, very cool. Once everything checks out,
so they're basically practicing for research for the future.
Yeah. To make sure everything works, to check all the systems. Things have been tested. Like Mike said, people built these things. They have been very, very thoroughly tested, but not in orbit.
Right.
Just once with the Artemis I mission, and no people on board.
Okay.
And so they're going to test manual controls and spacesuits and things like that, things that we didn't need to worry about when there was no people in there.
And let's just say, hopefully this is not the case, but something minor, let's say, like the toilets not work. I mean, that's not minor, but you know what I mean? It's not like a catastrophe. If something like that happens, they come back?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yes, they have backup systems for the toilets.
Right, okay.
That are a little bit more manual, a little bit more like the Apollo missions. But I do believe they're taking their time so that they can come back to Earth if they need to.
Okay, got it.
Before they do the lunar injection burn with the rockets. And so once they get to the high Earth orbit and then they're ready to go to the moon, that's going to be a lunar injection burn to get them away from the Earth's gravity, closer to the moon. And so there is going to be a point where the gravity influence shifts over from being more towards the Earth than towards the moon, and so that's going to be a very cool moment. I don't know if I don't think they'll really feel anything different, but I'm sure Mission Control is going to tell them, now you're in the moon's gravitational influence, which again we haven't done in over 50 years, which is going to be amazing. And then when they finally get to the moon, they're not gonna orbit the moon. So it's not gonna be like Apollo 8. So Apollo 8, when we saw that moonrise or the gorgeous Earthrise picture, they were orbiting the moon. And so we're not gonna have that. They're gonna be a little bit further away from the moon. They're just gonna do kind of one pass around the far side of the moon. So they really only have one shot to take these pictures, to look at surface features and things. And the moon is still gonna be relatively far away from them, like several thousand miles. And so it'll look like a basketball held at arm's length. So still pretty small, still pretty far away. And then they're gonna come back to Earth. They do get a rest day in this 10-day mission. I was excited to read that day 7, they don't really have anything scheduled, they don't have anything planned, and so they get a rest day in space, which I think is very fun.
I was loving looking at, I actually got to interview Christina Koch, who's on this mission, the female astronaut, and get in the Orion capsule, which was very cool. It is very small, which I'm like, I can't believe they're all going to be in there for 10 days. But when I spoke with her, she just stressed so much of what you just said, which was really so neat. I want to bring Mike back in for a moment and pick up on something that you just said there, which is this idea about how a couple things that you mentioned that are different from Apollo. Mike, tell us about what is different here than Apollo missions and what that means for the astronauts.
Well, if you can see this Lego I have here, I'm trying not to break it. They're making me nervous.
We got all the props.
You can see on the side these, yeah, you see these two white rockets that Tom had talked about earlier. Those are solid rocket boosters. So one major difference is that this spacecraft, the Space Launch System, the rocket, has both liquid and solid rockets. So it has liquid-fueled rockets with liquid hydrogen and oxygen that fuel the four rockets you see at the bottom of the stack there. But the two rockets on the side, those are solid rocket boosters. They're like giant sticks of dynamite. So once you light those things, you can't throttle them. You're on your way. You're going to go somewhere. It may not be where you want to be going, but you're headed in that direction. Hopefully they're going to work fine today. But they shake you up a lot too. They run rough. So you get a lot of commotion, a lot of shaking going on those first couple minutes. And then those rockets will leave the vehicle to land in the ocean. And then you're going to continue using the main engines that are at the bottom of the stack, those four at the bottom of the stack that are liquid fueled. And the ride smooths out, and then the G-forces start to build up. You get a max of about 3 Gs for the last couple minutes. So 3 times your body weight is what you're feeling in your chest. That's like, I felt like there were 3 big dudes sitting on me. That's what it felt like. So the difference between, to answer your question, is that the Saturn V was another huge rocket. This one actually has a bit more thrust than the Saturn V. And it's using a combination of liquid and solid rockets as opposed to the liquid-fueled rockets that they had on the Saturn V. So a smoother ride for the Apollo guys, a little bit rougher for my friends today.
Mike, the other thing I was going to mention about Christina, who's on this mission that I was just talking about with Dr. Rice here, was she posted on Instagram, and I think kind of like in layman's terms for us all to understand, she wrote her to-do list over the next day or so. 2 things that just stuck out to me because you're like, whoa, really? She said one of the things is she gets to change into comfy clothes, and she also talked about taking these naps. So like once you're up there, you're just kind of like living.
Yeah, you're going through your daily routines. The comfy clothes, getting your launch chute, take that off and put on clothes similar to what you're going to wear around around Earth, except the shoe. You don't need real shoes, so you typically wear like like slipper socks or socks, kind of fun socks. You can have fun with your socks. Your clothes, your shirts are pretty much the same. Your pants are kind of cool. They have Velcro on them, so just like regular pants, but Velcro on them, so you can attach your checklist or your spoon or your snack to your pants so they don't float away. And then she mentioned naps. Yeah, every once in a while, you might need a nap. I actually took a nap before my second spacewalk. I fell asleep in the airlock, which made me feel good because not only was a nap, but I was calm. There was no sleeping going on before my first. Yeah, you kind of get used to it, and you have a few minutes to close your eyes and take a little nap before you're going to do a big event. Why not? So yeah, it is a little strange. You think about doing it, and it seems so overwhelming, and it kind of is. But once you get into it, you're so well trained. It seems normal, and maybe that's what Christina was trying to share.
Yeah, it was so cool. Mike, we need to do a whole astronaut fashion segment with you another time because that was fascinating. Stay with us. We are going to now bring in Andrew Fazekas. He is a science writer and broadcaster known as the Night Sky Guy. Andrew, good morning. I want to talk with you about something that you put up on your website because I just think it's so cool and such a great little note for viewers. It's how sky watchers, and by that I mean like people with telescopes in their backyards, can in some ways observe this mission from home. Tell us about this and some tips for people.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there is a possibility, no guarantee. This is quite a challenge to be able to imagine seeing the Orion capsule on its way to the moon. I mean, once after it's launched, during the launch phase, there's obviously the ability to see the rocket go up into Earth orbit. So that there's this ability with the naked eye to see around the launch site. So for a few hundred miles around the launch site, there is this concentric bullseye that's probably about 200 to 400 miles across, where you could visually have the opportunity to catch sight of the rocket as it's going up into Earth orbit. But after that, imagine the ability, not even having to use a giant observatory or a super big professional telescope, but perhaps a backyard telescope as small as maybe with a 6-inch mirror, very, very common, or maybe even something like binoculars to be able to see the capsule as it's still orbiting the Earth before the capsule, Orion capsule, is going on its journey to the moon. It can be bright enough to be seen by backyard equipment that a lot of us may have. The trick is being able to spot it. Now, there are coordinates that the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, NASA's facility, has the ability to generate these coordinates of pointing you to where in the sky you need to look. And so I encourage people to go on my website. I've got the link there at thenightskyguide.com. You punch in where you are, wherever you're located, and it'll generate coordinates for you. And then you'll know where to point your telescope or binoculars and try to see it. But the point is, it's basically the day after launch. So if we launch today, so tomorrow, Thursday, is a great opportunity to try to catch sight with binoculars and telescopes in your backyard. And then again on its return on April 10th, 11th, when it's coming back to around the Earth orbit, is another opportunity where you can, train your binoculars or telescopes. And what you're looking for is a bright, what looks like a star-like dot moving across your view. And it's going to be going at quite a speed. We're talking about over 17,000 miles per hour. So it'll look like something that's just quickly going across your field of view.
It's so cool. I feel like we're inspiring a run on binoculars and telescopes today. So everybody get out there and get them if you want them. Also, if you've been watching our show, very cool that when you see it in this near Earth now, thanks to Dr. Rice, they're doing all these different kinds of tests, testing their suits, testing the toilet, important stuff. Andrew, what are you most excited about the prospect of learning about from this mission?
Well, obviously, this whole the whole notion of humans returning to the moon, that this is, the first step of seeing human presence back in moon's vicinity. Yes, this mission isn't about the moments that we're talking about, the first boot prints going back to the moon, but we're going to get close-up views. So what I'm looking for in this mission mostly, and I think a lot of us around the world, and this is not just, it's not just an American mission, it's the world that's along for this ride, the entire humanity. I'm looking for those human moments, those moments of when the astronauts are going to be looking out their windows and seeing the moon close up, especially on the far side of the moon. So little has been ever seen by human eye. Not since the Apollo mission have we had those views. And to see, of course, the iconic views of the Earth in the distance. I'm looking for those precious, iconic moments where it really brings that human perspective to this mission. We're all along for this ride. All of humanity, all over 6 billion people are going to be, have the opportunity to see this. It belongs to the entire world's heritage. Space is part of nature. It's just like trees and clouds and birds and all the things that we see around us. The universe and the cosmos is also part of nature. And we're exploring some of the most exciting parts of that.
Okay, Andrew, gorgeous. That was very amazing and moving. Thank you. Stay with us. Mike, I'm going to bring you back in here because I want to talk about these moments right now where they're preparing. But then also, I'm so curious about, as Andrew just beautifully walked us through, thinking about those moments when we all see them take off, we're all watching it. What are you watching for? What is NASA watching for? How do we know, hey, this went great?
Yeah, well, I think the thing to pay attention to, Savannah, is what they're saying. If you can hear the dialogue, the calls from the control center to the crew and the crew responding to those calls, is that things are working well, you go at this, looking, although just that there's no anomaly, there's nothing, no leak, no anything that would give the indication that there's something wrong. And hopefully, once they light those solid rockets and they start moving, that everything goes according to plan. That's when the business is taking place. For those 8.5 minutes or so, where you're under what we call powered flight, that's when the rocket is burning below you. That's powered flight, and that's when you're pretty vulnerable. You're hoping that everything's going to work well. So for that time, from the time the solids light until the main engine cut off at the end of those 8.5 minutes or so, and they're in orbit, that's the time to really pay attention and pray and hope for the best, and just listen to what's going on, and hopefully there's nothing out of the ordinary happening.
Okay, good. Great tips. Let's bring in Dr. Rice one more time. What are you singularly, if you could name it, most excited about?
I'm super excited. I think I'm going to say the pictures. I think I'm going to say the pictures because this is a different view of the moon that we've had before. The technology is hugely different. I mean, the astronauts, Apollo 8 through Apollo 17, film cameras. They were taking pictures, but they didn't know what they were going to get. You know, Apollo 8, I think he very famously grabbed the color film right away. You know, they had to choose between the color film and the black and white film, for example. And now in our digital age, we have 4 different humans going around the moon, this different view. I love so we haven't talked about it at all, but hopefully we can later. Their gravity indicator mascot is a little moon with a little Earth cap named Rise, after the Apollo 8 Earthrise photo. And they won't quite get that, but I'm sure they're going to get something. And I'm sure that it is going to be as kind of culture shifting as the Apollo 8 Earthrise.
Can we have you back when we get the photos?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
I'll put them on a T-shirt so that we can wear them.
Yeah. Oh, new shirts, new moon shirts. I love it. Dr. Rice, thank you so much. Mike, our friend, Massimino, enjoy yourself. Thank you so much. Andrew Fazekas, thank you so much. We appreciate you all joining us. And you can watch live coverage of the start of this 10-day journey around the moon during our special coverage. It's right here on NBC News Now. Join us. It starts at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And now we're actually going to get a check-in with meteorologist Angie Lassman for our launch day forecast. A huge piece of this. And Angie, you are really into space weather, which I love about you.
Yes, I totally am. I went to school in Melbourne, which is right by the Cape, Savannah. So I am all in on this. I covered the previous Artemis kind of launch. So I'm going to be right there with everybody else tonight, hoping that this launch happens. The good news is weather is really cooperating. We know how fickle it can be, especially on the Space Coast. And it looks like, at least right now, we're seeing those winds kind of light, southeast 3 miles per hour, wind gusting up to 6 miles per hour. You can see a couple of these little tiny showers that we're tracking. Those are going to be around at least through the midday and maybe even into early afternoon. But it does look, by the time we get into that launch window, that most of that will be out of the picture. And we'll really just be looking at some scattered clouds, a light breeze, and temperatures around 70, maybe 70 to 75 degrees. Otherwise, if we're looking ahead to tomorrow or even Friday, it does look like we have kind of more of an active pattern setting up with some more rain chances and some more cloud cover. So those will be things that we'll have to watch if we get into the Thursday and Friday launch windows. But again, hopefully we can get through today and have that launch happening. Here's what, if you think it's stressful to be an engineer for NASA at this time when we're talking about launch, this is what weather meteorologists are really watching when it comes to the weather. We've got multiple things: lightning, clouds, precipitation, temperature, wind, and solar activity. All of that is really important when it comes to the launch criteria. So if we see any lightning 30 minutes after that, within a 12-mile radius, you cannot launch. So we'll get the do not go for that. Also, we can't go through cloud layers. If you didn't know, of course, this rocket has, millions of pounds of propellant on it. And so we don't want to be anywhere near lightning. So of course, Mother Nature's lightning is something we're trying to avoid. But on top of that, rockets, when they enter through these clouds, can potentially create their own lightning. So that's another thing that we're watching. And that's why we're really keeping a close eye on the cloud cover ahead of the launch. And then, of course, precipitation. You can't go through any precipitation, or if the temperature exceeds 94.5 degrees, we'll keep an eye on that severe or even extreme solar activity. That's something that doesn't work. And those surface level winds. So it's the clouds and the surface level winds that specifically today, the meteorologists at NASA are going to be watching closely. But it looks like our weather is pretty favorable. Not so favorable if we switch gears and talk about what's going on across the Midwest and stretching into the Northeast. We've got rain. We've got another potential day of severe weather. But the severe shifts over really parts of the Central Plains. 8 million people at risk from Kansas City down to Sonora. We do have Wichita Falls and Oklahoma City in that enhanced risk. We're mainly going to be watching for the hail, the damaging winds, and those tornadoes, guys. So not so great of a forecast for folks across the middle of the country, but the launch looks pretty good.
That's good news.
That is good news. Excited about that. Thanks, Angie.
All right, coming up in Hawaii, the trial of that doctor accused of attempting to murder his wife while on a cliffside hike is rolling on.
When we come back, we'll hear from his son, who testified in court. We're going to bring you his stunning admission. That's next. You're watching Morning News Now.